All right, my friends. Okay, so the next thing that I want us to move on and look at is why is it that we are a two-party system? If you look at other countries, and that doesn't mean we don't have third parties or minor parties in our country. We actually have quite a few. If you Google them, you'll find some really silly ones. We have some prominent ones like the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, the Constitution Party. Those are prominent. And then you have some silly ones like there is a Boston Tea Party, and there is a United States Marijuana Party. Absolutely, right? Okay, and next class we're going to explore the contribution that those minor parties make because they are actually super valuable to policy creation in our country. But the reality is we're a two-party system. Okay, we looked last time at elections and we kind of talked about the fact that, no third party candidate has won the presidency unless that party became the majority party. But there are some very specific reasons why, beyond just the presidency, that we are a two party system. So the first one is, I guess it's kind of lame to say this, but we just always have been. What did we start with? Right. That was it. We started with this debate over the Constitution, which then evolved into the role of the federal government, like we kind of watched in the TED Talk last class. So that translates then into political socialization. So my entire life, my 43 years of living, I have been talked to and learned about Republicans and Democrats. So those two parties then, it's just kind of like, it just kind of perpetuates and feeds itself. Those are the parties we've had since 1860. Like, they've just been around for so long. It doesn't mean the parties haven't changed. They're actually very different today than they used to be, and we're going to explore that, like how those shifts happen. Okay. That's hilarious. Okay, this next bullet right here, we learned this last class. We have winner-take-all plurality elections for president. So whoever wins the most of the popular vote in the state gets all the electors. Which, remember, we looked at that mathematically, how that marginalizes our third-party candidates. Most famous to me, Ross Perot getting close to 20% of the popular vote and not a single elector. So it just makes it hard because they don't have as much money, they don't get as much media attention. People vote straight ticket. Well, you don't vote straight ticket independent, or you don't vote straight ticket third party. So as a result, they just don't get the same attention. And so Republicans and Democrats are kind of already set up to win. Single member districts, I'm going to draw you a picture if you promise not to judge. We promise. Thanks, I appreciate that. Thank you, I really appreciate that. Okay, so single member districts has to do with the legislature. Okay, so pretend this is your country. Not your country, sorry, your state. Looks like a light bulb. Okay, so that's the shape of your state. And your state is split into geographic congressional districts. Okay, those are funky looking. So, population of your state, you have 5 seats in the House of Representatives. So, voters get to choose in the district in which they reside. So, we're going to have a competition for Congress here, 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 and here. And whichever candidate, regardless, so let's just pretend in this district that we have a Republican, a Democrat, Green Party, and a Libertarian on our ballot. Whoever gets the most is going to represent that district. That's what single member districts are. So it's just the same as the Electoral College. Whoever got the most wins. That's the reason that of the 535 people we have in Congress right now, only one of them is not a Republican or a Democrat. That's not the only reason, but that's a huge part of it. Because if you run as a third-party candidate, you're probably not going to win. I'm going to show you another way to do it, so I think it makes more sense. Okay. There are countries out there that do proportional representation. So let's pretend that this is our state and we've been allotted 5 seats in the legislature. So then we have an election for legislature, and of all the people that run and whatever, the Republicans happen to get 30% of the vote, and the Democrats happen to get 20%. And the Green Party happens to get 15, and the Libertarians, and the Cotton Candy Party, and the da-da-da-da, and so on and so on. Then what they do is they allocate those seats proportionately. And they say, okay, the Republicans got 30%, so they're going to get this many seats. And then the Democrats, and so on. Every country I know that I've ever looked at their legislature where they have multiple viable parties in the legislature, it's because they have some scheme like this where they reward proportion. Every country I know that has only two major parties, it's because they allocate it based on this. So to me, our election laws are the number one reason we are a two-party system, because of the Electoral College and because of single-member districts. Have you got it? Everybody misses this on the test. I don't know another way to say it. Are you processing? Okay. So single-member districts leads to two parties. Proportional is a way that you're acknowledging all the proportions. And usually they have a threshold. And they'll say, okay, you have to have X amount of the popular vote because they don't want the cotton candy party being there, right? Okay. Okay, so the last thing is that the laws in our states are very much set up to favor the Republicans and Democrats. Several years ago, when you guys were quite young, we had a really interesting gubernatorial election in Texas. I just wanted to say that again. We had 4 candidates on our ballot that year. We had Rick Perry, a guy named Chris Bell, who was a Democrat, and then we had a lady named Carol Keaton Strayhorn, who was an independent, and her nickname was I'm One Tough Grandma. And then, you can't even make this up. This guy, the 4th candidate, his name was Kinky Friedman. Look him up. You'll find him. He's been in Texas politics. He's called like the Texas Cowboy. He's pretty interesting. Anyway, so Kinky Friedman and Carol Keaton Strayhorn were both independents. So they don't just get to just run for governor. They have to have 50,000 signatures of registered voters in Texas before their name can be on our ballots. That's a lot of people, you guys. I know.
Oh, yeah. Okay, babe.
Huh?
He has a song called "They Ain't Making Jews Like Jesus."
He bills himself as the Jewish cowboy. So.
Wow.
I don't know. He smoked it. There were debates that were televised. He smoked a cigar through the whole debate. I was like, okay, I'm done. I can't. So anyway, okay. So do you understand how that marginalizes third parties? Chris Bell and Rick Perry did not have to have 50,000 people sign on a piece of paper and say, we want you to run for governor. Because they're part of an established party. So if the party puts them out there, the state's like, okay, we'll go with that. But if an independent person does that, we put lots of hoops in place, and that's simply an example. There are other examples, and there's other places, other states do it differently. Generally speaking, we just don't favor the independents. We tend to favor Republicans and Democrats. Okay? All right, I want to show you one more thing before we move on. Huh? Oh, no. There were bumper stickers on people all over. It said "Vote for Kinky," and it was fun, you know. I don't know. Okay, so if you wanted to look, if you want to see, so our legislature, like I said, is dominated by two parties. I want you to see, well, what would that look like if we weren't? Because you hear a lot of people decry the Republicans and Democrats, and they're like, it's so frustrating. Why can't we have more options? So this is a picture. Israel is pretty famous for having a multi-party system. Because of the diversity of their culture and the just kind of divisive nature of their culture, they tend to have some pretty extreme parties. So they have 120 seats in their legislature. And this shows you how many seats every one of these parties hold. So Balad holds 3, Hadash is 4, Kadima is 2. Over here, the Likud Betenu is 31 seats, okay, in the legislature. If they're the most, are they in control? Why? They still don't possess a majority. You can't do anything with 31 votes. So the Likud party has to join with the other parties that are on their ideological side, because they would rather agree with these groups than with these groups. So if you have a country that has a multi-party system, they have to form what are called coalitions. And so you have the parties on the left and the parties on the right that form together and they work to support one another, which is the same as having a broad Republican Party and a broad Democratic Party. So in a multi-party system, voters get more choices, absolutely. But then once elected, if they can't work together, their governments will shut down, which has happened on more than one occasion in Israel, for sure. Okay? All right, yes ma'am.
They do the same thing in France, like for the
Yes?
presidential elections, and they have like 8 or 9 like presidential like elections, like in the final vote.
It,
That's really interesting.
it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, I find it, I mean, French government is so interesting, but because they do that proportional system. And then there's some, like, I don't know what it looks like now, but when the Soviet Union ended and they had their first constitution, they kind of split them. And they said half of them will be based on percentage and half of them will be based on single member district. And they had 10 parties the first year. I mean, so that definitely can happen, but you've got to acknowledge proportional is going to do a better job of giving minorities a voice, without question. But it's then going to like cause them to have to ally together. And what do we call that when they band together? Coalition. Okay, very good. All right. So here is our next step. So we want to know, what is this two-party system? I know you can't read that. It's just a picture. We want to know, what does this two-party system in America look like? And so we're going to explore a historical concept called party eras. So some of you may remember this from your history class last year. Your teachers may have talked about it. Party era is just like it's just a way of us classifying history and thinking about the role that party played in history. I want to use this information for us to understand why voters are the way they are today. Like, why is it that my grandparents' generation was so loyal and that my parents' generation is so disloyal to parties? Like what is the disconnect and what happens? So all around the room, and I'll pull the screen up in a second, there are 5 big posters that have a summary for you of what's going on during these party eras. You guys can go around. You don't have to read them in order. It doesn't matter. And at the bottom of your paper there, that last question, you're just kind of identifying what was going on. So what was the party era? What was the important issue? Who was in charge? You can do it as a timeline or whatever works for you. It doesn't matter. Probably take you at least 20 minutes to do this. And so this will take us up to the bell for sure, okay? Then the next class, we're going to use that information to figure out what all of these ideas on the next page mean. Riley, what was your question?
So if we look at all of them, do you have to write down everything for like each of the eras, or?
Yeah, I would identify that step. So I would identify what was like the important issue, who were the important people, and then which party's in charge.
Okay.
Okay? But like I said, go at any pace that you want. Don't feel like you have to start and like because you can't really all move together. And then just take your notes. Please don't just take a picture with your camera and then go sit down. I'm trying to let you walk around. Like get up, get your blood flowing. Okay?
I have a question.